Picture this. The year is 1793, the French Revolution is in full swing, and a man named Maximilien Robespierre is about to plunge France into a year-long nightmare known as the Reign of Terror. The revolution, birthed from the desire for liberty, equality, and fraternity, had taken a dark turn. The monarchy had been overthrown, and the seeds of radicalism were beginning to take root. Amidst this tumult, one figure rose to prominence: Maximilien Robespierre. A lawyer by profession, Robespierre had become one of the most powerful men in France. His radical ideas, driven by a relentless pursuit of virtue and justice, would soon lead to one of the most horrifying periods in French history. With the execution of King Louis XVI, France was no longer a monarchy. The old world was fading away, and in its place a new turbulent era was about to begin. And thus, with the execution of King Louis XVI, the stage was set for the Reign of Terror. Enter Maximilien Robespierre, a lawyer and politician whose radical ideals would shape the course of the revolution. Born in Arras, France, Robespierre rose to prominence through his eloquent defense of the poor and outcast, earning him a reputation as a champion of the people. His ideas were deeply rooted in the Enlightenment, championing liberty, equality, and the innate goodness of man. Robespierre's rise to power was meteoric. As a member of the National Convention, he played a pivotal role in the abolition of the monarchy and the establishment of the First French Republic. But it was his position in the Committee of Public Safety that truly solidified his influence. Formed in April of 1793, this committee was the de facto government during the Reign of Terror, and Robespierre was its most vocal and influential member. But what made Robespierre so radical? It was his unshakable belief in the virtue of the public and the wickedness of its enemies. He was convinced that the revolution could only succeed by purging itself of its foes by any means necessary. This belief would form the basis of the Reign of Terror. Robespierre was a master orator, able to sway the crowds with his speeches. One of his most famous quotes gives us a glimpse into his mindset. "To punish the oppressors of humanity is clemency. To forgive them is barbarity." He saw the Reign of Terror not as an act of cruelty, but as a necessary measure to protect the revolution and the Republic. His radical ideologies weren't without their detractors, though. Many feared that his extreme measures would lead to anarchy and chaos, and they weren't entirely wrong. Robespierre's reign would be marked by extreme violence and mass executions, a period of French history that would forever be remembered as the Reign of Terror. With Robespierre at the helm, the Reign of Terror was about to begin. His vision for a virtuous republic free from corruption was about to take a dark and bloody turn, setting the stage for one of the most tumultuous periods in history. The Reign of Terror was a year-long period of intense violence and political turmoil. This period was marked by the relentless pursuit of perceived enemies of the revolution, leading to mass executions that painted a grim picture of France under Robespierre's rule. The reign kicked off with the introduction of the Law of Suspects, a decree that essentially gave Robespierre and his Committee of Public Safety carte blanche to arrest anyone they deemed suspicious. This law cast a wide net, catching in its snare not just the aristocrats, but also common folk who dared to voice their dissent, or even those who simply fell afoul of their neighbors. In the name of preserving the revolution, Robespierre had turned France into a state of paranoia. Now let's talk about the guillotine, the chilling symbol of this era. It was seen as a humane instrument of death, but in the hands of Robespierre and his followers, it became a tool of mass execution. Thousands were sent to the guillotine during this period, their only crime often being a mere whisper of dissent against the revolution. Streets of Paris were awash with the blood of the executed, turning the city into a grim spectacle of death. In the midst of this terror, Robespierre remained unflinching, justifying these extreme measures as necessary evils. He believed that the path to virtue was paved with terror. To him, the revolution was a vessel of purification, cleansing France of its old regime and its sympathizers. The terror, in his eyes, was an expression of democratic justice, a necessary force to shape the new republic. But the Reign of Terror didn't just manifest in the physical sense. It was also a psychological warfare. The constant fear of being denounced as an enemy of the revolution took a toll on the French society. Trust was a luxury few could afford. This climate of fear and suspicion seeped into every facet of life, fracturing communities and even families. However, the Reign of Terror wasn't unopposed. As the death toll rose, so did the voices of dissent. The public's initial support for Robespierre's radical methods began to wane as the terror hit close to home. The revolution had begun as a fight for the people, but now, it seemed, the people were the ones being fought against. But as the death toll rose, so did opposition to Robespierre and his radical regime. The very terror he had wielded to consolidate his power would eventually lead to his downfall. But that's a story for the next scene. For now, let's take a moment to reflect on the Reign of Terror, a dark but pivotal chapter in the history of the French Revolution. Robespierre's reign of terror couldn't last forever. His downfall was as swift as it was brutal. Maximilien Robespierre, once the driving force behind the Reign of Terror, found himself on shaky ground by the summer of 1794. His radical policies, once hailed as revolutionary, were now seen as destructive and tyrannical. The French public, weary of the bloodshed and chaos, began to turn against him. His downfall was precipitated by a political coup known as the Thermidorian reaction. The Thermidorians, a group of moderate revolutionaries, feared Robespierre's growing power and the relentless wave of executions. They decided to act, and on the 9th of Thermidor, they struck. Robespierre and his allies were arrested. In a twist of fate, the man who had sent thousands to the guillotine now found himself on the receiving end of the blade. Robespierre was tried by the Revolutionary Tribunal, the very court he had created to judge enemies of the revolution. His trial was swift. There was no room for mercy or appeals. Just 24 hours after his arrest, Robespierre was led to the guillotine. His execution was met with relief and jubilation. The Reign of Terror, which had held France in its bloody grip for over a year, was finally over. But even in death, Robespierre left a mark on history. His Reign of Terror, though brutal, had transformed France. It had uprooted the old regime, redefined power structures, and set the stage for the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte. With Robespierre's death, the Reign of Terror came to an abrupt end. The fall of Robespierre marked the end of one of the darkest and most turbulent periods in French history. His name remains synonymous with the terror and chaos of the French Revolution, a stark reminder of the destructive power of radical ideologies when left unchecked. The Reign of Terror left a lasting scar on France, but it also played a pivotal role in shaping the course of the revolution. This period, marked by bloodshed and chaos, was a manifestation of the radical ideas that spurred the French Revolution. The radical phase, led by Robespierre, was a time of fear and suspicion that brought forth the dark side of the revolution's ideals. Robespierre, a man of immense conviction, believed in the necessity of this reign of terror to preserve the revolution. However, his methods were extreme, leading to the execution of thousands of people, many of whom were innocent. His downfall marked the end of the Reign of Terror, but the impact of his actions was far-reaching. Historians have since debated the motivations behind Robespierre's actions. Some argue that his radical approach was a desperate attempt to save the revolution from collapsing into chaos. Others contend that his thirst for power clouded his judgment, leading to the ruthless purge of perceived enemies. Whatever the interpretation, it's undeniable that the Reign of Terror left a profound impact on French society. It exposed the dangers of unchecked power and the potential for ideals to be twisted into tools of oppression. The revolution's promise of liberty, equality, fraternity was overshadowed by the terrifying reality of the guillotine. In the end, the legacy of the Reign of Terror is a cautionary tale. It serves as a stark reminder of the fine line between revolution and tyranny, between the pursuit of freedom and the descent into terror. The Reign of Terror and Robespierre's radical phase also shaped the future course of the French Revolution, leading to the rise of the Directory and eventually paving the way for Napoleon's rule. The echoes of this turbulent period can still be heard in modern France, influencing its political, social, and cultural landscape. So, there you have it, the Reign of Terror, a chilling chapter in the annals of history where the price of liberty was paid in blood. Until next time, keep exploring history with us.